Hello, everyone. It is Misha Green, DC editor, and I am so excited and eager to have this wonderful conversation with the Reverend Dorothy Muller, our managing editor. She hates when I do it, like when I say her name like that. But you have to give her props. And then we have Mr. Ralph E. Moore Jr., who you all know from the Moore Report and some awesome stories quite regularly found in our Legacy edition as well as online. And he's sort of the guy that is has started the trouble, if you will, started good trouble, if you will, for this conversation that we're having today. But before I tease that, let us introduce our guest, Mr. Nate Tenner Williams, who is the editor-in-chief of the Black Catholic Messenger. He's also in seminary, which I'm really excited to talk to him about at the Catholic University of America. And I want to hear how he's been balancing being a journalist and studying for the priesthood and the whole nine yard. So anyway, without further ado, welcome to AFRO Live, everyone. Thanks to all those who are already tuning in. We see you out there and we appreciate it. Remember, I always say sharing is caring. So go ahead and share this stream. People in your village need to know about this conversation. I think they'll find it really engaging. And feel free to ask questions or comments right in the chat, and we'll try to get to you before we end today's conversation. But as you might have seen in the live on your Facebook or YouTube, the name of this conversation is Black Saints? ? And that's because that's exactly what we're talking about today. Mr. Ralph wrote a piece in his column, the Moore Report, called "Take Down the Sainthood for White Americans Only" sign that exists in the minds and deeds of many Catholic Church officials. This piece was just featured in our newspaper Legacy edition, which hit stands hot off the press yesterday, but most folks will probably start getting your papers today and tomorrow. But it's online as well, so make sure you take a look at Mr. Ralph's piece. But I guess before we even jump in to our questions, and our illustrious leader, Reverend Buller, has a lot of really great questions, so I'm going to let her take the reins on this. But I wondered, Mr. Ralph, why did you even want to write a piece about a Black sainthood or the lack thereof?
Well, it's something that I've been thinking about for a long time. Coincidentally, 50 years ago, this past July, 3 other teenagers and I went into our church at St. Pius V in Harlem Park, and we painted the statues of Jesus and Mary black. That was quite an explosive thing to do in those days. And after Mass, the first Sunday, 300 people were screaming at me right outside the church. Some were trying to get me to fight them. They were putting their fist up. They were shaking umbrellas in my face. And one of the saddest encounters was that there was an elderly Black woman who said, "Why did you paint them so dark? Black is the color of the devil," she said. And it's just sad. But the other sad thing was that for a Sunday or two after that, she had a bucket of water and a scrub brush and a can of Comet, and she was trying to scrub it all off by herself. So it just showed how deeply ingrained some of the adverse feelings. I was sitting in church and said, "Why is it that everything in here is white? Nothing looks like any of us in the congregation." And so we went in one night, we borrowed some keys, we went in one night on a Friday night, and we painted all night long, including the Stations of the Cross, where it's 14 pictures of Jesus being tortured before he was crucified, and we only painted the figure of Jesus black and Mother Mary, and so it looked like these white Roman soldiers were attacking this Black man and his mother. So but we were young and enthusiastic. So I've been thinking about it for a long time, and we've raised the issue from time to time. But we've noticed that there are zero African American saints recognized by the Catholic Church, while there are 11 white saints recognized by the Catholic Church. And so there are 6 that are up in line for sainthood, but the process is slow, and long and expensive. They want to investigate each person's life, and they want to be paid $1 million to pay lawyers to do the investigation. Most of the public doesn't know that, but that's actually a fact, and that's a reality. And we could, I'll say some other stuff, but I think I'm talking too long already.
You never talk too long, Ralph. We
Oh.
enjoy hearing, because your stories are just amazing. And before I ask you the next question, let me thank Misha, our DC and our digital editor, for being our host this morning. We have to have Misha because she comes excited every time we do something like this. As for me, it's Friday morning, it's raining hard. I haven't had breakfast yet, so I'm going to be involved, but I'm not going to be so excited. But this is a great topic, and Ralph Moore, you are the good troublemaker, our favorite good troublemaker in Baltimore. So I'm happy that you brought this before us. I was born and raised a good Baptist, so we enjoy our sainthood on earth, and we call each other saints, and we dance around here before we get the chance to dance in glory. So explain to me a little bit about why sainthood is so important and so distinctive in the Catholic Church from what my perception might be.
Well, it's my understanding that the idea of sainthood, where we honor the ancestors, came from Africa. That very notion was taken from the African culture, so there's still a great respect for the elderly and for ancestors within African traditions, and so we just honor those people. We feel connected to them. We feel respect for them. We even ask for them to help us where they can. There's the whole notion of patron saints, and cities like Baltimore and others, DC, New York, could use patron saints. Baltimore is awash in violence. It's awash in COVID, and we could use a little help up in the heavenly heights with these issues and these concerns, and they can be helpful at times, and all. So that's where it comes from. It's an old, long tradition, and it's a tradition of respect for those who've gone before us.
Nate, let me bring you into the conversation. One of the things I heard as a kid was that Catholic people prayed to saints to, ask God to do things for them. And the Baptist grandmamas weren't having it because they were talking directly to Jesus. They weren't talking to anybody else. So can you help us, if you unmute yourself, Nate, can you bring yourself into that conversation?
Absolutely. I should probably start by noting that I was also raised a good Baptist. I'm a convert to the Catholic faith. So certainly for most of my life, that was my perspective as well. Like we don't talk to dead people. But as I was converting, I started to find it interesting that Baptists might be perhaps the most likely demographic to speak directly to people, their loved ones, after they die. They may say, not just that I know so-and-so is watching over me, but they might say, I know you're looking down and watching, like as if, they are communicating directly with this person. And I don't think the Catholic concept is so different. It's the idea that those we do believe have gone on to glory are watching us. They are looking down on us, and we can communicate with them in that way. But that was a process for me to come to that sort of understanding, because it was very, very foreign to me. But I do think it is in some ways compatible with what Christians believe generally.
So are you aware of this battle that's going on for justice and sainthood?
Oh, by all means. I very much am. I'm aware and I support the six causes, and hopefully more causes will come about. Because I think it's important to remember that there's a lot of uncanonized saints, people um, that are in heaven, but who we just have not canonized as these people who we recognize and remember on a certain day of the year. But knowing that there is this great cloud of witnesses, there's definitely a lot of missing African Americans on the church's list. So I'm very much aware and very supportive of the efforts being led by people like Ralph.
So, Ralph, who are we trying to? Is there a particular saint that we're working on now, or are we just trying to knock the door down in general?
Well, we are working on the cause of six. There are six of them, six Black Americans who are at various stages in the process. You know, the process involves the investigation and then meeting these particular steps. So Mother Marylange is a servant of God. And the next step is venerable. The step after that is blessed. And then the step after that is sainthood. And without going into it too deeply, the process involves the investigation, paying for the investigation, and then in the last two steps, providing miracles that can be certified. Just as an aside, Henrietta Lacks was a practicing Catholic at one time, a lot of people don't know, whose DNA still survives. It seems to me that she would be a great candidate for sainthood because her DNA is providing a miracle every single day and has for the last 50 years. Anyway, and of course, people don't know that Hank Aaron, the ball player from Atlanta, the Braves, was Catholic for a while. He and his wife lost one of their twin sons at childbirth. They were so overtaken, that the nurse introduced them to a Catholic priest. Eventually, Henry Aaron and his wife converted to Catholicism. The priest gave him a book on Jesus that he kept in his glove compartment. But as he traveled around the league trying to go to Mass, many churches would not let him in. So he eventually left the church and went back to his Baptist roots and all. But anyway, those are realities that we deal with. But these six causes are being worked on together now. From out of New Orleans, the groups have decided to push the cause of all six as opposed to seeing themselves in a competition against each other. And so I think cooperation is better. Cooperation is more African. And so I think they've taken the right step. But they're all being, very cautious. They're all believing in a process, and we've been calling for Pope Francis, who's my second favorite pope. I like Pope John the 23rd better, but nonetheless, they're calling for him to canonize them santo subito, and if my Latin from high school serves me correctly, that means sainthood suddenly. Mm-hmm. But he has fast-tracked the process fairly recently for Pope John Paul II, for Mother Teresa, for Bishop Oscar Romero, although Oscar Romero was martyred. He was killed while he was saying Mass in church, and all. And martyrs are easy. We should note that in the early Christian church, saints were declared by public acclamation. People generally just gathered together, and whether it was in church or wherever, and they said, we know this person is a saint. And it was easier for them to declare martyrs, but there were certain individuals who lived holy, purposed lives where they essentially gave more to the world than they took from it, and they were declared. Now it's just been since the 12th century that the process involves a congregation of faith conducting these investigations and making a recommendation to the Pope, where only the Pope can declare someone a saint. And so it's evolved over the years, and we're pushing that it be evolved once again to rectify the fact that there that over the years there have been nobody that looked like us in most of the Catholic churches. And now we look at this process and we see that nobody who looks like those of us who are Black Americans have been canonized. And we've remained faithful throughout all of that. We've remained faithful through segregation, even inside the churches, where we were expected to sit in the back. Segregation, where they told us that in Baltimore, they said for many years, we don't ordain Negroes. So that's why a Black Catholic priest waited until 1974. There was a priest in West Baltimore, from Harlem Park area, St. Pius, my church, named Father Paul Smith, who had to shop around. And finally, the Archdiocese of Alexandria, Louisiana, decided that they would take him and ordain him under that diocese. That was in 1964. But others couldn't be ordained here in Baltimore. Again, the oldest diocese in the country, and they dared say that. But we had the ushers would come to the back of the church to get our envelopes, but they expected us to wait until all whites had received communion before Black Catholics could receive communion. So we endured that. We at one time were not admitted in churches that we built and all. We endured that. We remained faithful. We were the remnant. Through it all, we understood who God really is, while others, to their own comfort, would practice racism within the house of God. So we have to push back against that.
Right.
There was a woman at St. Anne Church who finally said to the ushers sometime in the 50s or 60s, she was a lady with her grandchildren, and she'd come and sit in the front of the church, and the usher would say, "Excuse me, ma'am, you have to go sit in the back." But one Sunday she said to him, "I'm not going back there anymore. This is God's house, not your house." She was teaching him the truth, right? And, if she hadn't done that, we probably still would be sitting in the back of that church. And it happened in other churches too, like Immaculate Conception. It's sort of a Rosa Parks moment, where somebody finally says, "Wait a minute, we're not doing this anymore," And so that's the reality we've had to deal with. You couldn't go into the seminaries. Some seminarians went to Canada or went to Rome to study.
Mm-hmm.
I think Father Sterling went to Canada to study for a while. But Augustus Tolton, one of the 6 Catholic saints that we're talking about, he went to Rome to study because they just wouldn't allow it here.
Wow.
And I know at least one person who went, the first Black student at Loyola College, was in a dorm room by himself. Some people say it was probably as big as a closet, because the other the other students at Loyola didn't want to be in the same room with him.
Wow.
So that's what we have to do. We have to keep teaching the Catholic Church to be fair and to eliminate the contradiction, because it's not supported by anything in any of the Gospels that I've ever heard. And I've been a Catholic for 69 years. I did drift away for a few years. I joined Union Baptist Church for a while. My children were christened in Union Baptist Church when Reverend Vernon Dobson was still there. But I'm back. We gotta fight for ourselves.
Right.
I think that's such a good point, Mr. Ralph, in talking about how sort of the trajectory of African Americans fighting for themselves in the Catholic Church and where it's led. I would like to say, in all that I've read on Black Catholic Messenger, that's sort of part of why you all are doing the work that you're doing, Nate. Can you share a little bit, just for the folks who have never been on your website or know nothing about the Black Catholic Messenger, exactly what you guys are doing, but also how the work that you're doing could possibly help in the cause of 6 and this particular fight?
Yes, absolutely. We founded Black Catholic Messenger last fall. We just turned a year old, and it came out of the desire to see this presence of African Americans in American Catholic media, because we noticed that for the most part, it was non-existent. There's certainly none leading any Catholic media outlets here, and there's barely any writing for Catholic media outlets, certainly not on staff, at least. And there are Catholic newspapers in every diocese, virtually every diocese in the country. We're talking about hundreds, and our faces just are not there. Our voices were not there. So we decided that we would have to do something ourselves. And what made it easier was knowing that we weren't the first to try this. More than 125 years ago, there was another person who I understand to be an uncanonized saint. His name is Daniel Rudd.
Mm-hmm.
He was in near Louisville, Kentucky. He was born a slave. He founded a Black Catholic newspaper in Cincinnati, I believe. And it didn't last very long, but it set, I think, the standard for what was possible for African American Catholics telling their own stories and making sure that they are seen in the media. And so, you know, all these years later, we started this outlet, Black Catholic Messenger, and in the spirit of Daniel Rudd, we're trying to keep that narrative alive of that we are here, we cannot be forgotten, our stories must be told.
Right. So we have a fundraiser here in Baltimore named after Daniel Rudd, actually. I think we want to be sure to remember him. It's a scholarship program that has been run out of the Office of Black Catholics here in Baltimore. So, but we remember him and admire him.
Ralph, can you give us the short version of exactly what you want us to do? We know what the fight is. We are armed with information. Can you tell us exactly what you would like us to do as a result of this conversation?
Yes, and I'll try to give the short version, but it's not easy for me. No, I'm kidding. There are two things essentially. One is we're having a mass on All Saints Day here in Baltimore at St. Anne Church at 22nd Street in Greenmount. It's at 7 p.m. It will be celebrated by the newly elevated urban vicar, Bishop Bruce Lewandowski, and the public is invited to that. We will be honoring all 6 saints. We have purchased 2-foot by 3-foot portraits of each one of those saints from the Office of Black Catholics in New Orleans, and we're going to install those in the church permanently. We're tired of our children and our old ladies, our grandmothers, looking at a church where no one looks like us that are being venerated or honored. So we will permanently install them in the church during Mass on Sunday. We will have them proceeded in. Sister Michelle Proctor will carry in the picture of Mother Marylange. Teresa Wilson Favors will carry in the picture of Sister Thea Bowman. Father Donald Sterling will carry in the picture of Augustus Tolson, the first Black Catholic priest, the first to acknowledge his Blackness. And Eric March will carry in the poster of Pierre Toussaint, a businessman will carry in the picture of a businessman. So that Mass was open to the public. We invite people to come to that. There'll be a reception afterwards with the bishop. The second thing is, while they're at Mass, we will have available letters to the Pope. And so we'll want people to sign those letters, and we're going to send them off in a bunch. But all they have to do is read it. If they agree with it, sign it, and we'll send them to Rome. We have it addressed to his home address. He doesn't live in the Vatican. He lives at an apartment. And we found that out. We're sending stuff to him so it doesn't get lost in all those hollowed halls of the Vatican. And we're going to continue. We're launching the national letter writing campaign on Monday at the Mass, although we've already started collecting names from various churches here in Baltimore, and others in Buffalo are collecting them too, and other places. But we want people to sign, and we will get that information to the Pope. And in a way, it's like doing a public acclamation on paper and all. So we
can only Catholics sign?
No, everyone can sign. And we would encourage everyone to sign: Catholics, non-Catholics, Jews and Gentiles, everyone. So Muslims, we like Muslims too. So we're encouraging everyone. It's a fairness issue when all is said and done. and they have to be reminded that it's our church too, and we want to see and hear that reflected in the operation of the church. All white is not all right, as I like to say.
Nate, I'm curious how these millennial and Gen Z generation, who I guess Gen Zers are already starting seminary now, which is crazy to me. But how is the younger generation of priests and lay servants sort of fighting this fight, African American or not? How are they involved, not only in the cause of six, but justice within the Catholic Church?
I would say that our generation, the younger generations, are perhaps the most acutely aware of these issues, because there is an older generation of Catholics who, as Ralph hinted at, were more or less conditioned to believe that this was okay. Some of them didn't recognize that there was a problem at all. Whereas the younger generation, we can't help but to see this when we come into it. Many people who were raised Catholic, African Americans, stop practicing because of these issues, where they say, well, this church isn't for me. It shows me that it's not for me. So those who do continue to practice, I think, are very aware of this issue, and they're fighting the battle, I think, using the modes that are common to us, the internet. Like I explained with Black Catholic Messenger, there are these kinds of initiatives popping up all over the place. I just did a story on, actually one of our writers did a story interviewing a guy who started an initiative called Black Saints Matter, creating digital portraits of not just African Americans, but the whole history of Black saints, including the African Americans on the path to sainthood. So these kinds of methods are popping up. These sort of initiatives that spread the story, I would say, globally, because we need these causes not to just be popular here in the United States, but to all over the world, so that the church hierarchy can see that we care, that this matters. And I'm sure some of the church hierarchy aren't aware at all. So if we don't bring these stories up in these mediums, they'll never know. So yeah, I would say that we're using more modern techniques to try to get the word out, and we're fired up.
I think fired up is a good place to be. Rev, do you have any other tuning in? If you all, I'm seeing your good mornings and your check-ins, and we appreciate that. We appreciate you rocking with us on this. If you're in the DMV, rainy Friday, we appreciate you checking in with us today. But go ahead and throw some questions in the chat. If we don't get to you on the live, just because we have about 2 more minutes, we can try to link articles and or answer questions post the stream. And remember, the article that Mr. Ralph wrote will be, or already is, in this week's paper, Take Down the Sainthood for White Americans Only sign that exists in the minds of and deeds of many Catholic Church officials. That article is also on AFRO.com, so make sure you check it out. But Rev, do you have anything else to ask? Any burning questions before we wrap?
I didn't really. I just wanted you to remind folks that only the members and subscribers could get the actual newspaper. And so if they wanted to have that in hand, that they could go to the website and sign up for it. Other than that, they can sign up for our digital editions.
Great.
Absolutely, yes. And let me make sure. I believe I can. Yeah, we go. Subs at afro.com. That is how you get to it.
A little commerce. Yeah.
We got to do the whole business, Ralph.
No question. No question. Absolutely. Let me just mention very quickly, I know we're running out of time, that recently the Marylange School, Marylange was the foundress of the Oblate Sisters of Providence, the Black nuns. There was a school that was opened up, a $24 million newly constructed building, and it was named for Mother Mary Lang. We did an online Facebook petition with hundreds of people signed. And we think that was had a part in convincing the folks downtown to name the building for her. That was not their original intention. They were going to name it after another white guy, but we managed to convince them. So anybody in Baltimore, as they go downtown to work, it's on a main thoroughfare, and they can see it. And inside that building are huge pictures of Mother Marylange. These women were courageous. They were teaching the children of slaves how to read the Bible so they could be connected to God. And they suffered the possibility of being tortured or killed for that.
Absolutely.
So why they're not saints, or why she's not a saint, I don't know. But that's what the struggle is. That's what the fight is for.
Yes, and Mr. Ralph, I believe you mentioned Mother Marylange in this article, correct?
Right, I did. Yes. Yeah.
So
I've been aware of her and devoted to her for many years. So yes.
Well, we appreciate you uplifting her and empowering her legacy and message and always and her good work. And of course, again, as you all have heard in this stream, the way that you get to read all about Mother Marylange, at least in this week's Afro, is by going on www.afro.com, but also becoming a subscriber and getting that. There's nothing like that hard copy of our legacy edition. I love it. They're all on my coffee table, like making it look pretty, and it looks almost like an Afro dedication. And why not? Because we're Afro all day, every day, and we've been around 130 years giving you all information pertinent to the Black community and our fights and our achievements and all of the above. So make sure you become a member of our family by going to subs at afro.com. You can also get our subscription page by going to www.afro.com. Thank you so much, Nate and Mr. Ralph, for being with us today. I'm going to pull up Nate's website because he's doing a lot of great work with Black Catholic Messenger. I would love to have him back on to figure out just when he sleeps. I'm the daughter of an Episcopal priest, now Episcopal bishop-elect. And I remember when she was in seminary. I don't know when my mom slept. I have no idea. So I don't know. And she was a full-time student and did not have a website to run. So kudos to you, Nate, for putting in the work and all the wonderful things that you're doing. And Mr. Ralph, thank you for all that you do with us at the Afro and for continuing to fight the good fight and cause good trouble all around, all the way to Vatican City, it seems.
That's right. That's right.
And as always, thank you, Reverend Boulware, for being a great leader and ensuring that this conversation and all of our conversations can happen and continue. You guys are not going to get anything like this on your mainstream media, which is why you need folks like the Afro and Black Catholic Messenger, because we're the people telling these kinds of stories. So again, become a subscriber. Check out afro.com, check out blackcatholicmessenger.com, and we appreciate your time. Enjoy your weekend.
Happy Friday.
And yes, happy Friday. Thank you all. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.